Welcome back to 5 Minutes With on Buzz TV. I'm your co-host Mike White, and Bob Zinsser and I meet with industry professionals talking about what makes them tick, how they're successful, and what's next in life. Join us today, we have Jeffrey Spear with Studio Spear. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
What's next in life? You're a success. You've written 3 books. What's next in life? So tell me a little bit about Studio Spear.
So Studio Spear is primarily a food and beverage branding agency. Think of us like a graphic design studio and advertising agency combined. We work with growers, we work with manufacturers, we help them get their products to market.
Excellent. So working with the industry, what is the biggest challenge you have with your customers?
Most of them don't really know what it is that they're making. They don't understand how it fits in with the marketplace. A lot of what we do is strategic planning, where we look at the competitive landscape. We look at what other companies are doing. You know, if you're selling the same as, well, what's special about yours that makes it competitive, gives it an advantage over everybody else? A lot of folks don't do that, and then they don't budget properly. I always say, what's your budget? We don't have one.
Would you like to call out, look at camera 2, and you can name some clients right now, like air your grievances with them?
I've been meaning to talk to you.
Here's your chance. Jeff, I know we've known each other for a while and met through an organization here in Jacksonville and keep coming into each other. But do you work just in the continental United States, or what is your market?
So as a result of, I do a lot of public speaking for the industry at different trade shows. You know, they're national, international trade shows. And I was invited a long time ago to work in Serbia. And this is before Google Earth and before a lot of the online maps. And it's like, where the hell is Serbia? But anyway, since then, I've been working internationally, been on every continent except for Antarctica. It's fascinating work. But the same practices that I employ domestically, this idea of strategic planning, competitive advantage, all of that, you know, the right design, especially for food products where you're dealing with, in the grocery store, they call that purchasing decision the final meter, the final yard where someone reaches for it. Getting someone to make that purchasing decision is difficult. And so these are the things that we work with.
Yeah, it's certainly very specialized marketing as well, working with food and beverage. Is there a lot of companies? What makes you unique? Are there a lot of other companies that do that, or they kind of dabble in it?
Well, before the Food Network, we were very unique.
Okay.
Since the Food Network, the food became the cool and groovy thing. And so now everybody's doing food marketing, but they don't have the same degree of sophistication when it comes to strategic planning. Their design skills aren't, arguably, some are pretty good, some aren't. But I bring that international perspective to whoever I work with. And if they're looking to if they're serious about getting market share, penetrating new territory, you got to be aggressive about this. You got to have the right knowledge behind you, and without research, you're dead.
Well, speaking of international, I was on a trip to Italy a couple of months ago, and I'm walking down this little side street, and there's this bookshop. And I go in, I'm looking at these different titles, and I came across this book. It's called My Life in Gluttony. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this. That story about Italy wasn't true, but but I got this book. So tell me a little bit about writing this book, and it's your 3rd book.
Yeah. So a number of years ago, for the chefs out there, they'll understand the name microplane. I don't know if you know them. It's a culinary grater. Every chef has it in their tool bag.
Watch your fingers.
Yeah. We did a cookbook for microplane. And in the wake of that, said, hey, this was fun. Let's do some more. And so when I first moved to Jacksonville, I wrote a book called The First Coast Heritage Cookbook. It's now out of print, but you can find other copies, used copies online. But that was about the culinary influences here along the First Coast from 14,000 BC to 1821. And so it deals with the indigenous populations, the Spanish, the French, the British that came, and the Africans that came with them. And so what culinary influences did these different groups have? Because before all that exploration, most of the foods that we enjoy today, take your typical Thanksgiving dinner, take away 80% of it, because that's what came after the Europeans. Well, so
interesting.
So anyway, so this book, because of all the work I do in so many interesting places, people say, Jeff, you're eating all these interesting foods, you're posting pictures on Facebook, why don't you write a book? So I started with my childhood. I grew up in Maryland, talking about the interesting culinary experiences in every place that I'd lived or visited where the culinary experience was distinctive. So I talk about char-grilled mouse from Malawi. Talk about getting a meatball cheesesteak or meatball sub from Trio's in Washington, D.C. at 3 in the morning after a night out at the pub. Having meat pies in Australia, all the different interesting foods. And so that's what this book's about. And there are recipes that go with it, so if people want to cook, they can cook.
Wow.
So if you showed up at the Zinsser household, tell me about the culinary experience that you would expect. You've
At
known
his
Bob
house?
a long time. Yes.
I have no idea. We've always
not-
eaten out.
Not talked about that.
What do we get at the Zinsser household?
My wife likes to try new things. She
Mm.
is a definite foodie, and she enjoys cooking. So it would be something pretty good. Maybe not as good as you've had in your experiences, but I eat well.
Well, you tell her to check out some. Those recipes are some of my best.
She is going to.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. She'll
Yeah.
enjoy that.
Mm.
Thank you.
Last question, quick piece of advice. So I want to go out on a high-end date in Jacksonville with my bride. Where do you go?
Okay, there are a handful of places that I recommend. First off, one of the companies that I write for is Jacksonville Magazine, and they just came out with their 50 best places to eat in Jacksonville. So look at that, see what appeals to you. But I talk about Orsay, Taverna, Town Hall, Moxie. Out at the beach, there's Coop
Dwight's.
303, Dwight's. There are about a dozen or so places that are really worth our while. Otherwise, it's a hit or miss. So,
Well, I appreciate you coming on the program, and congrats on all of your successes and your
thanks.
culinary delights.
yeah, it's a pleasure being here. Good to see you. Good to see you
See
too.
you again too, Jeff. Thank you.
To find out more about Jeffrey Spear and to get a copy of his book, visit us at iwantabuzz.com. We'll see you next time on 5 Minutes With.